Podcasting since 2005. This is the King of Podcasts radio network. kingofpodcasts.com.
Maybe it is time for us to stop throwing shade on sugar dating.
We're all a little depraved and debaucherous. Here is the King of Podcasts.
I'm so glad you made it back. Welcome back to the Praise and Debaucherous, King of Podcasts, here with you. Welcome you to the program. Tonight, a South African singer is proclaiming to the world that we need to stop throwing shade on sugar daddies and women looking for sugar daddies to sugar date. And so she's very vocal, went on a podcast and talked about it. Plus, I have a follow-up on a story. Do you remember when I talked about the Singapore sugar daddy scam? Well, I've got an update on that for you as well here on the program tonight. But first, we got to go and do a little bit of business. Stay tuned for this.
All right. This one's for the guys listening right now. If you're not into good enough and you actually care about performance, you'll want to hear this. Firm Tech makes performance rings designed to help you stay harder, last longer, and if you're into data, their award-winning tech ring actually tracks your stats. These aren't novelty toys. They're research-backed, FSA and HSA approved, and designed to fit comfortably whether you're soft or hard. Easy on, easy off. If you want to level things up, head to myfirmtech.com and use code KING, that's KING, for 15% off your entire order. Don't just perform. Leave an impression. myfirmtech.com. Code KING. All right, this one's for the guys listening right now. If you're not into good enough and you actually care about performance, you'll want to hear this. Firm Tech makes performance rings designed to help you stay harder, last longer, and if you're into data, their award-winning tech ring actually tracks your stats. These aren't novelty toys. They're research-backed, FSA and HSA approved, and designed to fit comfortably whether you're soft or hard. Easy on, easy off. If you want to level things up, head to myfirmtech.com and use code KING, that's KING, for 15% off your entire order. Don't just perform. Leave an impression. myfirmtech.com. Code KING.
Firm Tech, you might remember I took Dr. Elliot Justin a while back on the program, and I get to go and be a sponsor of Firm Tech. So yeah, guys, you know out there that if you're trying to get yourself set up and you don't have anybody to be the prey the debaucherous, well, you might as well do the prey the debaucherous thing. Find something that will take care of you, maintain you, help you to make sure that you're getting the right blood flow to where you need it to be, and you get great orgasms. Find out for yourself. myfirmtech.com. The code is KING, KING, for 15% off the entire order. Go ahead and do it right now. So the singer, actress, presenter, among other things, her name is Nandi Madida, and pretty famous in South Africa. And she made some comments out there. By the way, beautiful woman. And she mentioned how in South Africa, that times are very tough. And I've talked to some girls in South Africa, beautiful women, by the way, down there. Aisha Speed was just down there recently, meeting and getting the feast of his eyes on the beautiful women that were there in South Africa. The dark-skinned, lovely African females that were down there. And she is weighing in on why, in her view, some young women find themselves in compromised situations and relationships. If you didn't know, from the time I've spent browsing through sugar daddy sites, there were quite a few women in South Africa seeking sugar daddies because the price of the South African rand is minuscule when you look at it. Just to give you the heads up, so 63 cents in a US dollar equals 1 South African rand. And I mean, there's a lot to that. It's like even lower than what you would find in Jamaica or any other Caribbean countries, as a matter of fact, or Dominican Republic for that matter. So the 37-year-old singer, actress, model, presenter was on a podcast with El Tito, who discussed the growing trend of women dating for financial reasons. Now, this podcast that she was on, I wasn't able to find too much about, but the thing is, she was featured on there, And she says she doesn't believe in judging women who find themselves in such circumstances, but rather in examining the systems that place them there. So I want to go and play what she actually said.
When you have a government that doesn't empower enough youth, right? I'm talking about females in this instance.
Okay.
Enough young females. There's not one female I can tell you now who wants to be with the criminal, who wants to be with the sugar daddy, who wants to be with some random, I don't know, minister or whatever the case may be. I can tell you any young woman firstly wants to be empowered, wants to be independent, and to choose that they're the real love of their life, which is not usually that spec. Let's be honest, right? But now we have a country that doesn't have enough support. You've seen it. Whether it's funding for university, you saw fees must fall. You saw how the kids were treated. You saw what Keenan used to speak about, AKA, you know, God bless him, we love him. It's still an issue. And it's very intentional as well, or at least it feels that way, where if a female is empowered, a young female, the chances of them compromising who they are minimal. I can tell you now why I'm so confident. It's like, we could avoid Altitos as a joke. Cheers, Swami.
She has that Tyler kind of feel to her, but that's obviously how the South African girls will talk, you know, just being flirty and very free and easy going like that. Now, El Tito is a rapper, a very famous rapper in South Africa. And of course, listen, we don't know about South Africa unless you're in South Africa. So if I'm talking about these folks, you obviously know who they are. But anyway, back to this. The empowerment of women, that they're able to do what they want, but when times are economically tough, you know, recessionary kind of periods call for reactionary type of things. So you do something to go ahead and help to sustain. So the women there are not against the idea of sugar dating. And she goes on.
But as a joke, but the reason why you're like, yeah, Nandi, you know, you have integrity and whatever. I can't tell you with my chest, had I not had my father being able to provide for me, you know what I'm saying? A husband who was supportive in that way. You don't know. You know what I'm saying? And when I mean provide, having someone who can take you through college, support you in that way. So what we're finding is a pandemic, and my biggest passion is young females, where if we can empower females, think about it. Who wants to be the sugar daddy? No one, guys. These beautiful girls don't want to be with a sugar daddy. They know it, but they compromise from a financial perspective as well. Yes, there may be a few who are into a lifestyle and whatever, but the truth is, if you can get empowered, and if whether it's the government or private sectors really saying we can change your life, I'm telling you now, they'd be able to change their lives.
So there you go. That's Nandi Madida, who, just to go back with some of what she just said right there, I don't like judging any female, for example, who sometimes feel like it or is in a compromised situation. I want to break down the system, and this is my perspective. When you have a government that doesn't empower the youth, I'm talking about females. There's not one female who would tell you they want to be with a criminal, a sugar daddy, or some random minister. And that most young women simply want opportunities that allow them to stand on their own. This is the problem where we have women that are not able to go ahead and get any kind of sustainability from family. Well, there's not a proper family structure. And women are coming out of the woodwork, young, beautiful women that are coming from single family homes, single mothers, and, you know, step situations, foster homes, whatever. Think of the situations that you know for some women, if they don't have that strong family structure. There's something to be said about where we want women to feel protected and loved and have that wonderful atmosphere. Because you have to ask yourself, how many women do you see out there that are influencers, which is a step away from, they want to be able to be maintaining a lifestyle. Again, it's a fantasy they want to go ahead and live out. So they're trying to find a way to go ahead and live out the fantasy of not needing anyone because no one was there for them. Finding the money they want because they didn't have what was there for them and provided for them like they would have wanted. And social media makes it very tough now because there's an impulse to be having what other women have or having more than what they have, things like that. So it's very important to go into that point and say, okay, for women out there, Yes, there are those you can tell if you're going onto a sugar daddy site, you realize there are some that are there just to go ahead and make ends meet because they just want to be able to get something done. And those are the good ones out there. The ones that, are not like trying to go ahead and sanguinate you and rob you of all your money. They might be asking for things because they're just asking like they would have normally asked their father or asked, some other man in their life. Until they can get themselves to a point where they're on their own feet. Because I'm sure with many of those influencers out there or many of those women out there, before they got themselves to be the independent modern woman that they were before, they had to start somewhere. They did try to get some support from somewhere. I don't think any woman just comes out overnight. I mean, for those that decide to go on to OnlyFans, it's the same idea. Now we know that they are working their way to get some kind of ends meet for themselves before they have to do it themselves. So the empowerment is that women, inherently are supposed to be subservient. You would think there would be. There's a maternal instinct. There's a subservient instinct, a vulnerable instinct, a feminine instinct. Because they shouldn't have to go ahead and be out there doing it on their own. But obviously now it's become very obvious through, the feminist culture has been around for 60 years that women are meant to go and feel like it's not even to the point where, okay, we want women to have equality. Absolutely. As a man, I want that. But to feel like they don't need any man or any woman or anyone else to live their lives, that idea of loneliness and then trying to go and do things on their own and struggling, as we've seen with many people here in Florida, especially even in South Florida where I'm at, or pick anywhere around the country in major cities, women that are struggling to make ends meet. It's not easy over here for a woman to go ahead and get themselves here in South Florida where I'm at, where it's a growing hub, tech, financial, what have you. Like the thing is, I see women now that are trying to live that life and they're being given all these impulsive areas to go ahead and go. So in downtown West Palm Beach where I'm at, you go down the street, you have Aloe to go find, workout type gear or clothing, this everyday gear for the women out there, which is very expensive. Equinox, which is extra high end gym out there to go to. Pop-up bagels or M&M or what is it? H&H bagels, right? All these different shops for mocha lattes, matchas, Celise, or, Three Natives and all these other places to go. And so women are being enticed to go ahead and just like live this lifestyle like an influencer. And come down here, come for the weather, come for the atmosphere, come for the people, and just come for this whole vibe that you get from this place. But it's very expensive to go and live down here. Plus, not to mention the housing down here, which is very expensive. And to live in the whole thing of having this concierge lifestyle and living all these things, it's too much to ask for. So Nandi Madida goes on to say that empowerment plays a critical role in protecting young women from compromising their values. And she says here, going back to what she said, I want to go and play that back for you real quick. As a matter of fact, let me go back to that real quick and just go to the part where she says this here, because I think what she said here was very important, because I think how she said it, when it comes to empowering females, if you can get them empowered, they would be able to change your lives. Again, this is what she said in that clip. So we're going to go back into that once again and just make the point, because I think what she says here is very clear and it makes a great point. So let's go back to this.
Where if a female is empowered, a young female, the chances of them compromising who they are minimal. I can tell you now why I'm so confident. It's like, we could avoid LTDs as a joke. Cheers, Swami. But as a joke, but the reason why you're like, yeah, Nandi, you have integrity and whatever. I can't tell you with my chest, had I not had my father being able to provide for me, you know what I'm saying? A husband who was supportive in that way. You don't know. You know what I'm saying? And when I mean provide, having someone who can take you through college, support you in that way. So what we're finding is a pandemic, and my biggest passion is young females, where if we can empower females, think about it. Who wants to be with a sugar daddy? No one, guys. These beautiful girls don't want to be with a sugar daddy. They know it, but they compromise from a financial perspective as well. Yes, there may be a few who are into a lifestyle and whatever, but the truth is, if you can get empowered, and if whether it's the government or private sectors really saying we can change your life, I'm telling you now, they'd be able to change their lives.
But now, that might be in South Africa where it's a different culture because there's, I would say, a little more respect, a little more integrity for the fact that women don't want to be in a place of destitution or depravity to where they have to rely on OnlyFans or rely on these other things. This is much more of a Western culture kind of thing. But the thing is, in South Africa, there are some Western cultures that are prominent down there, and they see that down there. But the thing is, these are African women that are beautiful, that, you know, from a tribal point, okay? Fathers, uncles, you know, brothers and sisters. Like it's a different family unit down there, very extended and very supportive, you would imagine. And maybe they don't have that much, but just to try to do things to help them to find a way to a better life. As she says, help find for a young woman to make her way through college, you know. That's a very noble thing. And for any man who has a daughter or just has a woman in their life, they want to see them succeed in something. If they can find a career or a hobby or something that they find great passion is, yeah, let's do something out of love and try to support in that way. But in America, it's a much different story, Nandi, because we have down here women that, as she says, they are looking at the financial freedom and they're looking to go ahead and live this lifestyle. Well, that lifestyle has been amplified for so much down here. It's gotten really bad. And it's unfortunate in that way. But I got to appreciate where she came from with this. And her idea here is really good. So I like that she came. And at the same time, she's also speaking about men at the same vein, which is also interesting. And she sparks a debate for grace for black men in South Africa. And we can also take this conversation into something more that's going on here for America as well. We can also take that. So she also spoke about the fact that in her marriage or career, she talked about systemic inequality, masculinity, and economic pressure in South Africa. So here's another clip from her talking about having grace for black men. I think you could take this subject and put it into even a bigger perspective about how it is for men to give respect. And I think that's what she's doing here, is she is really talking about the fact of the issues that men go through and the financial hardships they also go through in a system of government and just the way that the country is there economically, which is also, again, economic hardships are not just affecting for women, it's also for men. So for men that cannot make the kind of money to support the women out there, that's where she comes from with this. So let's play that part.
I do here, I have to advocate in a very genuine way. Seriously, our black men have gone through so much. Mm-hmm. And financially, it is almost impossible to try empower yourself, even when you try. You know, the system's against you. Mm-hmm. You know, people don't have support from the government. Mm-hmm. You have 400 years of being, you know, oppressed. Mm-hmm. Where is this money going to come from? Mm. You know? Mm. And so we do have to give our fellow black men grace. And if you can see, the intention is to do better, you know, and make someone something serious. Mm-hmm. You know, that's a good guy.
Yeah. And
I mean that genuinely. I always say that, like, black men, particularly, I'm going to speak about South Africa because I'm proudly South African. Mm-hmm. You guys are up against so much.
And
so the point is that it's also an acceptance of the fact that, at least in South Africa, you know, women that are choosing to partake in the sugar dating lifestyle because it's a way for them to go ahead and make their way up, that they want to go ahead and look at the fact that guys are up against so much of their own hardships. Now, for them, they're talking from the perspective of where in South Africa, you know, there might be a lot of people that would like to see government help. That's a political discussion that I'm not going to have here, but she makes the point of on this program because she's trying to make the point about how guys and gals, you know, the job market, private jobs, public jobs, there's just jobs to find in South Africa in general are the worst of any, you know, structured, highly developed country. Put it like that. For any highly developed country in any other part of the world, like so Europe or Asia or North America here or South America, the job market there is extremely difficult because there are millions upon millions of people that are not working right now. So it's tough for everybody. And so for women, they can go the route of trying to find ways to go ahead and use their bodies and use who they are, their youth, their beauty, to help get themselves ahead. But it's not something they want to do because there's a pride to being South African and being black that they don't want to go for this for too long. This is the kind of mindset that we've talked about here, where before we had OnlyFans, if a woman wanted to go ahead and find a way to go ahead and move ahead in life, if they worked at a Hooters or a Twin Peaks or work at a strip club or things like that, where they did some things that were a little bit more sexual, salacious, a little more naughty, but if that was something, a way to go ahead and make ends meet, that's what they did. So what else can you do about that? But I love the fact that she actually brings this up about men just from a social factor that, appreciate where men are coming from. Because the thing is now, social media has made it a point where women that are independent and modern, they don't even care about the men and the money they make or what they provide for them. That there's not even a care in the world for these men at all. So if a sugar daddy is out there, that woman's not appreciating him. If it's a younger sugar daddy, especially even more. But even if it's a transactional relationship, the women don't care about the men at all. It's getting more and more clear all the time. It depends if the social media is out there and that the women are really bought onto that. And it's they're basically emotionally broken. They don't have any empathy, no sympathy for a guy and what they're going through, what it took for them to go and make the money to go and buy them the bag, buy them a nice dinner out, whatever. There's no appreciation for that. And the appreciation is not just the sex. Okay. This should be more than that. So being transactional like that, to the point of being transactional, is horrible. But we're getting to that point now, and there's no appreciation for the men. So here's more from El Tito here, who's talking to Nandi Madida a little bit more about this, a little more of this clip. We're going to play this real quick.
And I think it's interesting because we never have these conversations. And the rhetoric and the narrative out there is I am not Bob the Builder. I'm not building any man. And we're not saying take a guy that's a bum, that has no vision, that has no ambition, and make him your man. But it's everyone is still working on themselves. I think we judge each other very harshly. We're looking for people who are already made or who are already perfect. And I think that's why there's so much miscommunication between males and females.
I love that. That's very well said. We are talking about young men and young women, specifically here when it comes to sugar dating, because it's becoming a common thing we know that young women, if they have to find a way to make ends meet, and being an influencer, going on OnlyFans and finding ways to go make ends meet on their own are not working, use your body for what it's got. And that's the point here. The idea of giving more grace, that social media has amplified unrealistic standards of success and wealth. And the digital age has blurred the line between aspiration and reality, creating pressure for people to perform prosperity in their everyday lives. But then there's a lot of backlash to this right here about what she said, Nandi Madida. So one person here, Dr. Rebrand on X, writes, the black community is very interesting to me. Nandi is saying something she would never do. She gives him grace from a distance. She'd never be with a broken man. Men who are applauding her in the comments will never even access her. The advocacy is for who exactly? More commentary. I understand Nandi and I also understand the girlies. Do black men have it hard because of the system? Yes, they do. But do the girlies have a right to say they don't want a relationship built on struggle? Yes, they do. Nobody is wrong. Nobody's right. So there's a part where women don't want a relationship built on struggle. But see, the honest relationships, they always talk about the fact that, when you see a millionaire, a billionaire, somebody that's successful, when they stick with somebody that's been there since the beginning, since the jump up, from the get-go, those are the ones that you stick around with because you realize it doesn't matter what you have. That's real love. And that's the part I think was really understood. More women also commenting here that Nandi has a well-grounded message, but it's oversimplified and has selective emphasis. Underplaying accountability, a selective focus on black South African men, using social media as a scapegoat, and fails to stress that healthy relationships require mutual grace, not one-sided leniency. These gender wars must stop because they carry generational curses, and the black community does not deserve the unattractiveness that comes with them. And by the way, this can go for any community out there. This can go for anybody who's young. Let's just make that clear too. Now stay tuned, because in just a minute, I'm going to tell you about the update on the Malaysian sugar daddy scam.
All right, this one's for the guys listening right now. If you're not into good enough and you actually care about performance, you'll want to hear this. Firm Tech makes performance rings designed to help you stay harder, last longer, and if you're into data, their award-winning tech ring actually tracks your stats. These aren't novelty toys. They're research-backed, FSA and HSA approved, and designed to fit comfortably whether you're soft or hard. Easy on, easy off. If you want to level things up, head to myfirmtech.com and use code KING, that's KING, for 15% off your entire order. Don't just perform. Leave an impression. myfirmtech.com. Code KING.
Rajwant Singh Gill Narajan Singh. So I told you about the story of the Singapore sugar daddy scam, where he was able to embezzle $183,000. Let me go and play back a little clip of that, which I talked about going back to December of last year. So only 3 months ago. Let's go back to it. This 38-year-old Malaysian man would go on dating platforms like Tinder and presented himself as a wealthy white man supposedly living aboard a yacht in Malaysia. He would arrange meetings, appear in person, pretending to be the man's driver, before assuming the false identity of the sugar daddy to pressure the woman into sleeping with him. Elaborate scheme. You know, this is one of those kind of things where I don't think I could go this much, but there must have been something about this guy that had some money on him to be able to orchestrate this kind of deal. He would further threaten to release explicit videos of the victims unless they transferred money or provided other benefits. Now, one woman was promised $30,000 a month in return for a sexual relationship. Wow. For any woman that thinks they're going to be able to make that kind of money as a sugar baby, what kind of mindset do you have? You're saying $7,500. We're saying $1,000 a day. I got to say it like this. I don't know how this woman didn't realize she was going to get screwed over. What kind of delusional thinking is there right there for a woman to go and think that, listen, I feel bad for her. I can't believe this happened to her. This was wrong. But still, she's already setting herself up for a trap because she's asking for so much. By the way, that guy, remember, also had a wife and son. So now the story in this here is that he has been sentenced to 12 years in jail for pretending to be a rich white man and coercing women into sex. Now, back into the story, he's been convicted of 2 counts of cheating and 1 count each of extortion and attempted extortion, including involving 2 victims identified in court documents. The deputy public prosecutor, Jeremy Bin, told the court, quote, by his horrific and perverse conduct, purely intended to satisfy both his sexual and material desires, the accused has callously and irreparably damaged the lives of his victims. He adopted multiple online personas, including Mike and other names, saying he was a white man with a lavish lifestyle and offering large monthly sums in return for sex and companionship. And he would refer to be the sugar daddy's driver, using that role to gauge whether he could cultivate sympathy or resort to threats related to the fictional benefactor. So again, $142,000 American or $183,000 in Singapore. And he still has pending charges involving 13 other alleged victims. And in a separate case involving another woman, he was sentenced last year to 4.5 years in jail or to pay $7,000 Singapore dollars compensation for pleading guilty to 2 cheating offenses. Now, in Singapore and Malaysia, because he's from Malaysia but was also operating here in Singapore, that authorities and lawyers say that arrangements can quickly cross into criminal territory when payment is explicitly tied to sexual acts, when deception is used to obtain consent, or when threats and expectations are involved. So, yeah, he used the sugarbook.com platform for sugar dating and was able to connect to mutually consenting adults accused by critics and authorities of facilitating transactional sex. There was another case in 2021 where there was a man jailed for orchestrating an elaborate and well-executed plan to cheat women by posing as wealthy benefactor, and several other men received jail sentences last year in similar cases, targeting teenagers and threatening to circulate explicit images to exert control over the victims. So this is nothing new. But there we go. The guy got his just desserts. He's going to be in jail, and I would imagine that guy's not going to do too well in jail. You know, instead of having young women or teenage women to extort and to get sex from, he's going to get it from some other guys out there that will see him to do something a little depraved and debaucherous.